Elves versus goblins, dual deck right
Dual
here.
deck, yeah.
A little bit more powerful than a dual deck.
Slightly.
And Joel, the Wright, is playing 4 copies of Gaia's Cradle, is playing 2 copies of Dryad Arbor, so this looks very much
No Emrakul.
Like Reed's deck from last week.
Yes. He is playing the second Craterhoof Behemoth instead of the Regal Force, which is one of the points that's debated among Elves players, as well as the 4th Natural Order, where Joel only has 3. So Tom Ross on the play with a Goblin Lackey. If he has one of his 3 Tarfires or 2 Gem Palm Incinerators to follow this up and get it through, then this game might be over fast.
Yeah, because most assuredly Joel is going to cast an elf here to block.
But getting hit by a Lackey is one of the worst feelings in all of Legacy. Mm-hmm. Has been for about 8 years.
And how many potential removal spells did you say Tom
3
has?
Tarfire and 2 Gem Palm Incinerator, and also 1 Sting Scourger, which would get the job done.
Okay, but if it's a Death Right, that takes away the Gem Palm.
Yes, it does.
Gem Palm only deals damage equal to the number of goblins, which is currently 1. It cycles and has a cycling trigger. Or he could just triple up.
He's the boss because he has an entourage. You know, he has a lot of lackeys that follow him around.
But that also reduces the number of potential goblins he could have in his hand.
Yes, it does. Although the deck refuels quite quickly when you start getting matrons and ringleaders.
Yeah. But Joel Wright drops another high toughness elf in Nettle Sentinel at 2/2. Plays a Cradle. Can make 2 green mana off that. And can make 1 mana off of Deathrite Shaman, eating his own Wooded Foothills. Glimpse of Nature, so he's got 1 green floating.
Nettle Sentinel and then Glimpse for the extra Cradle.
Plays the Heritage Druid, no mana floating, he draws a card, but now he can make 3 mana off the Heritage Druid activation.
Looks like we're going off.
Yeah, another Heritage Druid, untaps the Sentinel, draws a card. So we've got 2 green floating from the first Heritage Druid activation, and now he just says go.
Oh, he missed. He's hoping to change some elves, get a little more value out of that, but he missed.
Yeah.
Tom Ross has got to be breathing a sigh of relief now. He likely thought that his game was over, and all of a sudden he gets to untap, and at least one of those lackeys is getting through. He goes Chieftain rather than Wasteland the Cradle. He is going aggressively here. I guess you don't Wasteland the Cradle because Joel has so many non-elf cards in hand that you have to assume he has another one. Okay. Lackey only puts in a Mog War Marshal, though. Not any Ringleader or Matron shenanigans. No Sharpshooter, which would be the real backbreaker.
So this is what I was saying, is that with 3 lackeys in his opening hand, or including his first draw, just not any more gas to put into play.
Yeah. Well, if he had a Matron, if all 3 triggers go on the stack, you have a Matron, you put it into play with the first one, and you get a Ringleader, and then the Ringleader comes in with the second one, and then you could put something you hit off the Ringleader in on the third one. But without the Matron, yeah, the chain has to start somewhere.
And Joel Wright played a second Nettle Sentinel, which is ideal with Heritage Druids, but nothing to follow up on, so he really did run out of gas there on his Glimpse of Nature. Didn't draw into anything. Now this turn, you have to think that Tom is going to get rid of the Cradle. He has a Wasteland and a Rishadan Port now.
The Mana Denial not too good against elves usually, but it looks like he's going to be putting on enough pressure that if he can tie up that Cradle, he might actually...
Okay, so Goblin Chieftain and the lackeys. And the 2 tokens come in. They're all 2/2s thanks to the Chieftain.
So you have to trade off for the Chieftain. The question is, do you block anything else, and if so, what? Looks like he's going to start by gaining 2 life.
Say 10, 12.
And he takes it all.
So
this smells like a Craterhoof Behemoth.
Tarfire could be lethal.
Tarfire would be lethal.
But you think Crater Hoof, he can make 5 off of the Cradle, but...
Ooh, Pyromancer, a Nettle Sentinel. That's pretty good too.
So Tom cycles there, possibly looking for the lethal Tarfire.
So he hit a Ringleader off of it and then put it into play with a Lackey Trigger. That was all in response to the Lackey Trigger. So now he hits another Ringleader and a Skirk Prospector. And, yep, move those over so you can see it. Hits another Ringleader off of it, off the first Ringleader. So that's coming into play, and that's going to give him a... Is that a Lethal Tarfire? It is indeed, and Joel Wright scoops it up. Tom Ross takes it down, even though Joel had, a glimpse draw.
Yeah, we thought he was going off there with the
fizzled.
Druid.
He fizzled and ran out of gas.
Ran out of elves to play. And he took a bit of a chance there, taking it all, going down to 1, possibly trying to set up the Crater Hoof Behemoth play on his turn.
I can only assume that's what it was.
And Tom made a pretty good play there. He cycled the Gem Palm Incinerator in response to the Lackey Triggers, looking for a Goblin to put into play. Found the Goblin Ringleader, chained them, and
yeah, and as I was saying all game, once that chain gets started, it is lights out. It snowballs so fast. And this is traditionally how the matchup plays out. The Goblins deck has a ton of removal, and the Elves decks need a critical mass of things, but the Elves decks have a much more powerful combo draw. It has this combo orientation that the Goblins deck doesn't really. The Goblins deck's, quote, combos involve, some grindy card advantage and, aggressive starts.
And Ringleader is the kind of combo at the end.
Yeah, but, the combo is just, a bunch of card advantage. The Elves combo kills you.
Right.
And that's the key difference. So Joel Wright trying to go off, wasn't able to complete the process, and Tom Ross takes down game 1. And as we look to the sideboards, looks like just a bunch more removal for Tom. He has the 3rd Gen Palm Incinerator, the 4th Tarfire, Pithing Needle might come in, and for the insect guy, the Symbiote, Wirewood Symbiote, and Pyrostatic Pillar as a 1-of in Tom Ross's sideboard, along with 2 Pyrokinesis, a real backbreaker.
Yeah, both of those cards. Pyrostatic Pillar would be really good if you want to defend against the combo draw.
The Glimpse draw.
Of Nature.
Yes.
Yeah. Triggering off of every cheap spell, 3 or less that you cast and dealing damage.
Yep, so that's how Tom is set up. On the other side, Joel Wright has... looks like another Natural Order and a Progenitus, so that's a decent place to start, just try and get him dead. You can also Thoughtseize, but I don't know how effective that's going to be. You have to take some Incinerators sometimes, but...
I don't like bringing in discard spells in this matchup.
Yeah.
That's really more for anti-combo, actual combo decks.
Yeah. I mean, traditionally, discard is good against Goblins because you can tag their Ringleader and then they just have a bunch of 1/1s. But this deck, this version of Goblins is a lot more robust, and Elves deck can't really afford to take all this damage and time to Thoughtseize. If you're trying to go off with Glimpse and you hit a Thoughtseize in your packet of lands, instead of an Elf to keep going, that can be the game.
You don't want to dilute your critical... Neither of these decks wants to do that.
Yeah.
You bring in non-Goblins, your Ringleaders are going to get much worse.
Yes.
I believe back when Goblins was in Standard, someone wrote an article about this. It might have been someone like Zvi Mashowitz talking about the percentage of Goblins in your deck and what that does to your average number of Goblins off of Ringleader.
Yep. It looks like Tom is likely going to take out Pile Drivers. They just get clogged up. You can just block it with a Nettle Sentinel or what have you. Usually
does not do anything.
Yes. Usually not the card for these types of matchups, and bring in more removal.
That's
card
why they gave that Pro Blue.
Yeah, flavor-wise, it doesn't make that much sense.
No.
But at the time, I understand why it was needed.
Flavor-wise, that card doesn't make sense at all. Pile driver?
He's pile driving, which...
But he's actually doing a sleeper
makes him
hold.
Stronger? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not sure about that one, but... I feel like I have to give the edge to Tom Ross post board, which means winning that first game is so huge because now he just has even more removal, and the Elves deck doesn't really improve all that much.
Well, you're right, but being on the play now, Joel Wright, I think, can at least take this game.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. He's also got Abraham Lincoln holding a boombox.
That is an awesome shirt.
Don't really know.
Meanwhile, Tom Ross is just being a boss.
Keep using those nicknames.
In case you don't know who Tom Ross is, he's the guy who played Asha's Favor in a Pro Tour top 8.
That would be the counterspell blue-white 2?
No. It is an aura for white and 2. It gives your creature like flying and first strike, or flying first strike vigilance, something like that.
Does it cycle?
No, it has no other abilities.
What?
It doesn't cycle, doesn't pump your creature, it just gives it some random abilities.
In constructed?
No, limited.
Okay.
It was not playable at the time, and he played it, and he's an awesome mind of the game. He approaches the game like very few other people. It looks like he has an Aether Vial on 1. Probably the best start, probably even better than Lackey, since Lackey just gets blocked by the massive L's. But Vial will always be able to generate some sort of advantage. There you see the Modern Masters Aether Vial. A card that when it was first printed, no one thought was good. They didn't have it in their affinity decks for a long time, but it has become, it was bannably good and was good in every format that it has been available in. So
Joel Wright has started off here, some lands, and then an Elvish Visionary. That was also Dryad Arbor you see in play. And the Future Sight version of Dryad Arbor, so no controversies will be happening today.
Yeah,
I thought that was a forest.
Even if he had the forest version, he's got Zendikar Full Art actual forests, so it wouldn't be camouflaging in. I'm still pretty upset that they printed that other Dryad Arbor.
That was the From the Vault Realms version of Dryad Arbor. Looks very similar to Avacyn Restored Forest.
Yes.
And it actually has the big green mana symbol in the text box.
Which is very misleading. There it is.
There you go. It looks like a forest unless you read the name.
Yeah,
or
if
the
you
type
stack your
line.
lands in a way that you can't see the power toughness, it looks exactly like a forest.
But we don't have to worry about that. Tom Ross now picks his
Second
vial
Aether
up to
Vial.
1 and plays a second Aether Vial, which is very important because the Goblin decks actually go up to 3 and 4 with their Aether Vials, sometimes even 5 for Siege Gang.
So this is actually pretty awesome. He's tapping Dryad Arbor for Glimpse with Cradle in play, and Tom Ross has a Pyrokinesis in his hand. So he's actually, if he just Pyrokinesis on his turn, then Joel would have full information and be able to decide whether he wants to Glimpse yet or not. But since he's doing it now, he's not going to get a Heritage Druid activation and will be short a bunch of mana. He'll still be up 5 mana, but he won't have the Heritage Druid anymore. So unless he redraws into the Heritage Druid and more elves to activate it, then he could be short on mana. And doesn't pull the trigger there.
Well, he can still respond to this Visionary. Gotta respond to the third elf coming into play. You don't want.
Oh, sure, yeah. You don't have to
Joel
respond
to make the 3
Yeah,
mana.
you don't have to respond to the Glimpse. You can respond to the third elf. That makes sense.
See what his first elf is. So, okay, he lets the trigger resolve for the draw. Is he letting it enter the battlefield? Letting the Visionary. Okay.
Wow.
So the Visionary enters the battlefield. He draws a second card for that trigger. Now he can make 3 mana.
Tom Ross with a very deceptive line here.
Now here we go. Quirion Ranger points to his Glimpse. Draw a card. So we've got two green floating right now. He used the Dryad Arbor to play the Glimpse, the 2 forests to play the Elvish Visionary, then tapped 3 elves and is using 1 of the 3 green mana for Quirion Ranger.
Well, you can no longer choke out mana, so I don't think that there's... Wow, so he does Pyrokinesis. A
now.
very strange time to pull the trigger on this. But he is taking out...
And the Cradle taps to make 4 in response. So now there's 6 green mana floating. And the Quirion Ranger and the card draw on the stack. Draws the card.
Wow, Wirewood Symbiote's a great draw there.
So 5 green floating.
He gets the draw card from the Glimpse and bounce the Quirion Ranger and draw another card off of it.
But if he wants to continue the chain, he's going to need to find mana at some point. Draws his card.
Looks like he's kind of breaking off. Has a couple of Cradles and a couple of other lands.
Okay.
He passed? Surely you just take a free card there.
Well, it looked like he made a hand gesture passing. Need to take
Is this frustrating? Is this frustration at... Wow, and Tom Ross tar fires the Wirewood Symbiote end step. Joel Wright's frustration at fizzling 2 games in a row got to him, and he made a major misstep there. Let's see if this is a creature, because he could have continued the chain if this is a creature. He's not going to show it to us, though. It is a creature. So he theoretically could have continued.
Casts another Quirion Ranger and has a Dryad Arbor.
Dryad Arbor is actually a forest, so it can be saved by these Quirion Rangers, so it can't be wastelanded. Looks like Tom Ross's 1 card in hand was Goblin Ringleader. He just draws Lackey and plays it.
Tom Ross did use his first Wasteland to take out the Guy's Cradle, has a second one. And now Joel Wright is reloaded. He's drawn a second Heritage Druid.
That also would have been drawn off the first. Like, he would still be going off right now had he bounced the Wirewood Symbiote.
And I think meanwhile also he has a second Glimpse of Nature in his hand, doesn't he?
I think it's 2 lands. I'm not sure. Looks like he just hits a Tarfire off of the Ringleader. A very disappointing Ringleader. You definitely want more value than that out of it.
Good enough though. Tarfire takes out the Heritage Druid. He also has a Goblin Chieftain, which he drops in, as we said, the Aether Vials on 4 and 3. It's kind of the ideal positioning for the Goblin deck.
So you get a free chump here, bounce it with the Quirion Ranger.
It's 1, 2,
Taking
3,
5.
4.
Or I'm sorry, 4, you're right. Not sure why the Dryad Arbor's in play. It should be in his hand. Assuming he bounced it. This is awkward. What did I miss? Did he just take all the damage? He might have just taken all the damage. Either way, Deathrite Shaman now in play. Tom Ross going to his turn. He's got a Violet 3, a Violet 4, and 2 lands. So anything he can draw, he can play. And sure enough, he hits a Mog War Marshal, which represents 4 more power, hasted with the Goblin Chieftain.
Cedric Phillips token right there, guys. Attack.
Casual attack.
Now he looks to block. Yeah, based on the way he's blocking now, I guess he did not block last turn.
The judge making him spread out his attackers. Likely for our benefit, so we can see it more clearly. Sure enough, he does block the Ringleader, the most damage. And he's thinking about how else to block. His hand is 2 Gaia's Cradles, it looks like.
So no Glimpse
Look at
of
that body
Nature.
language. Full on facepalm.
It's like he's got the face hugger from Aliens in his hand, sucking your soul.
Alright, so he did block like that, bounced the Dryad Arbor this time. By the way, he would have drawn that Deathrite Shaman, so he would still be going off. He would still be powering through his deck.
In your alternate universe,
Yes, in my alternate universe. Let's see what is the top card. If this is like a natural order or something, it's a Birchlore Ranger, so he would still be going off.
If you sign up for a return to a Ravnica block draft, please sign on up to the side event stage for your event. It is ready for the start. Once again,
Echo.
Tom Ross untaps, chooses not to pay the Echo.
Another Cedric Phillips.
Can we get a Cedric Phillips and an Eric Smith? Wow, ringleader, and Joel Wright just packs it
Yeah.
in. I've seen enough.
Too many goblins.
And Tom Ross takes it down in the dual deck battle.
Yeah, so goblins.
They're the superior race.
I wouldn't say that. It was a superior deck. So Tom Ross with the goblins
He didn't even do any sharpshooter shenanigans.
goes to 4-1. Joel Wright drops to 3-2. Rapidly, his dreams are fading
Yes.
of making top 8 in this tournament. Still alive for Tom Ross. We'll probably see him later.